All right, welcome to The Explainer. We see it all the time in movies and on the news, but have you ever really thought about what happens when a law is broken here in the Philippines? We're going to follow the entire life cycle of a case, from the street all the way to the final verdict, step by step.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start where it all begins, with an incident on the street. Then we'll follow the investigation, see how a case formally enters the legal arena, navigate that mountain of paperwork, and finally, look at what happens when a judgment is made. Let's dive in.
Okay, first up, from street to system. Every single legal case, no matter how big or small, really just starts with one single moment, an event that pulls regular people into the complex world of the law.
And that moment triggers this simple but huge question. Is this a crime against the entire state, or is this a private dispute between two people? The answer to that question changes everything that comes next.
To make this super clear, we're going to follow two different stories. First, a criminal case, a robbery. That's considered a crime against all of us, against society. And second, a civil case, a good old-fashioned property dispute between neighbors. That's a private fight.
So in our robbery case, the law calls it a felony, or delito. And this isn't just about the one person who got robbed. No, this is seen as an offense against the entire community. And that's a really critical point, because it means the state is the one that steps in to prosecute.
Now, for our property dispute, the whole thing hinges on what's called a cause of action. It's a legal term, but all it really means is that one person's action, like building a fence in the wrong place, has violated someone else's rights. And that's the spark that lights the fire for a private lawsuit.
Section 2. The investigation. Okay, let's jump back to our robbery case. The police are on the scene, and now the clock is officially ticking on the investigation.
This is basically the playbook, drawn right from police field manuals. The first officer who shows up, their job is to lock the scene down. No one in, no one out. Then, investigators start talking to people, while the SOCO team, that scene of the crime operations, starts the painstaking process of collecting every little piece of physical evidence. It's methodical for a reason.
So what are they actually hunting for? Well, basically everything. You've got testimonial evidence, what people saw and heard, object evidence, the actual things like a weapon, documentary evidence like CCTV footage, and even latent evidence, the stuff you can't easily see, like fingerprints. Every piece is a part of the puzzle.
All right, Section 3, entering the legal arena. The first part of the investigation is over, and now it's time to take it to the next level. Both our criminal case and our civil case are ready to be formally filed in court.
Now, you can't just file your case anywhere you want. It has to be brought to a court that has jurisdiction, which is just the legal power to actually hear and decide that specific kind of case. You have to pick the right battlefield, so to speak.
So how does that actually work? Well, to put it simply, the less serious cases usually go to the Municipal Trial Court, or MTC. For crimes, that means the penalty is 6 years in prison or less. But for the more serious stuff, major crimes or civil cases with a lot of money at stake, you go up to the Regional Trial Court, the RTC.
And get this, even the document that kicks the whole thing off is different. In our property dispute, the person suing files a complaint. But for the robbery, it's a public prosecutor who, after looking at all the evidence, files a document called an information. That's what formally charges the suspect.
Section 4. Let's focus on our civil case for a bit. A trial doesn't just magically happen. First, there's this back and forth of formal documents called pleadings. It's a paper chase, and it sets the stage for everything.
It's a very structured dance. The plaintiff files their complaint. The court then sends a summons to the defendant, who then has to file an answer. This whole paper trail finally leads to what's called pretrial. And this is a huge step where they try to simplify everything and really push the parties to see if they can settle it.
Okay, but how do you make sure it's a fair fight? You don't want a trial by ambush, right? Where one side just hides all its best evidence and springs it on you in the courtroom. Well, the system has a solution for that.
And that solution is called discovery. Think of it as a set of tools that lets each side see what cards the other is holding. They can demand documents, take sworn testimony out of court through depositions, or send written questions that have to be answered under oath.
It's all about getting the facts on the table before the trial even starts.
Okay, Section 5, Judgment and Justice. After all the paperwork, all the procedures, and maybe a full-blown trial, both of our cases have finally reached the finish line. This is the moment of judgment.
A judgment is way more than just a win or a loss. It's the court's official, final, binding decision. And here's the most important thing. It can only be based on the evidence that was actually presented in court and the laws that apply. Nothing else.
So in our robbery case, if the accused is found guilty, the judge doesn't just make up a punishment. They have to turn to the revised penal code and its scale of penalties. The punishments are all categorized, from light to correctional to afflictive, and the final sentence depends entirely on the specific details of the crime.
But here's something that often gets overlooked. Justice in a criminal case isn't always just about prison time. The court also deals with civil liability, the responsibility to make the victim whole again. This can mean restitution, literally giving back what was stolen, or reparation, paying for its value if it can't be returned.
Part 6, why this process matters. So we've gone through all the steps, the paperwork, it's complicated, and let's be real, it can be incredibly slow. So why is all of this so important?
It matters because this whole thing, this entire intricate process, is the rule of law in action. It's a system that's designed to be predictable, to be transparent, not just based on someone's whim. By forcing every step to follow the rules and basing every decision on evidence, the process is aiming for one thing above everything else: fairness.
So we've walked through the process. It's a framework built on rules and evidence, and it has a clear purpose. But that leaves us all with a much, much bigger question. While the law gives us a procedure, what is true justice? That's a question every single one of us has to keep wrestling with.